You know, even with perfect vision, Indian cricket fans would never be able to see sense. And I say that as an Indian cricket fan myself. Because Indian cricket is currently so messed up that not only is it ruining Indian society, it's also destroying the future of the sport in the world. This has so many angles, so let's break all of them down as usual with the help of data in off-angle style. A couple of weeks ago, during India's match in the Champions Trophy against New Zealand, Virat Kohli was caught out by Glenn Phillips after making a dismal 11 runs. As a fan of Indian cricket who loves Virat Kohli, I was heartbroken and angry. I screamed at the screen, but that was about it. And I'm sure I wasn't alone. There are more fans like me. But there was another group of people behind the scenes, people who were fans of Virat Kohli. Keep in mind, not fans of Indian cricket. They went on Phillips' social media and commented, "Virat is your father. One fingernail of Virat Kohli is bigger than your entire cricketing career." Not Glenn Phillips' social media, by the way. The handles of Philips Enway, the Dutch electronics company that makes ceiling fans and electric trimmers. A company which, by the way, also happens to sponsor Virat Kohli. The exact same thing happened and the fans were quick to say Virat is your father to Harish Sangwan, a fellow Indian who got Virat out in a domestic match. See, that's what happens when we observe people getting stupid blind in religion. But don't worry, these people don't just exhibit the traits of stupidity, they can also be extremely vile and toxic. For instance, in December 2024, when India was playing Australia at the Melbourne cricket ground, Travis Head got Rishabh Pant out. Guess what these fans did? These fans started hurling abuses at Travis Head's wife, calling her some of the most obnoxious and vile stuff. On behalf of them, Jessica, I'm sorry. But more importantly, there are some aspects about the Indian cricketing culture that need to be broken down in order to show these people some sense. The root of all issues here is that the player is much bigger than the game, and that makes all the other aspects of the sport terrible for everyone else. In every other country, for every other sport, no game is ever bigger than the player. If the team wins, everyone praises them, and if the team loses, everyone criticizes them. Even as a fan, the tendency to put the team before the player exists. For example, in Australia, you are first an Australian cricket fan and then a Pat Cummins fan. But in India, our behavior shows that these are mutually exclusive. There are Indian cricket fans, then there are Virat fans, then there are Dhoni fans, then there are Rohit fans. If the team wins and Virat Kohli performs well, then Virat fans start criticizing all the Rohit fans and vice versa. And a very recent example proves this point. I still get emotional when I think of that day back in 2023 when India lost the World Cup final after winning every single game that led up to it. During this tournament, Virat Kohli did exceptionally well. He got 765 runs across 11 innings, averaging 95.62. He got 3 centuries and 6 half centuries. But when we lost the final, do you know what Virat Kohli's fans said? How much more do you expect the king to carry the entire team? But look at the performance of everyone else. Rohit Sharma scored 597 across 11 innings. He had a strike rate of 125. He hit 31 sixes during that tournament. The bowling attack was no less. Despite playing fewer games than all the other bowlers, Mohammad Shami got 24 wickets across 7 games. Jasprit Bumrah on the other hand got 20 across 11 games. The entire team did impeccably well until they didn't in the finals. And keep in mind, it's not just a fan base of one player like Virat Kohli. Virtually every single player in India have their own fan base who loyally root only for them and not for the team. But the moment any actual fan spoke about the team's performance or criticized any of these players by mistake, they met the same fate as Jessica Head, Harish Sangwan or Phillips. Not Glenn Phillips, the electronics company. And I'll tell you why this happens. It's because Indian fans are proud. Not in a good way. This is the kind of pride that prevents you from seeing sense. When you put an individual player and their records on a pedestal, you start ignoring the other pieces of information that actually matter. This leads to 2 outcomes. Firstly, the players start taking the fans for granted, and secondly, the Indian Cricketing Board, BCCI, starts taking the sport for granted, which ruins it for the other nations. The data I'm about to share with you now will show you some shocking truths about how the players and the BCCI have negatively impacted both the Indian society and cricket as a whole. But before I do that, if you learned something new up until this point, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel as it keeps us all motivated. I promise you in the minutes to come, you'll find a lot more value and some shocking data. Because cricket enjoys a religion-like status in India with blind following, if you ask any Indian cricket fan to tell you on the basis of data and track record, which is the best cricket team in the world right now, 9 out of 10 times they would say it's India. But objectively, when you look at the data and ask the question, has India performed when it counts, you would get a really scary picture. Prior to the 2024 World Cup and the current Champions Trophy win, India's track record looked like this. India reached a total of 7 semi-finals and lost 4 of them. They reached a total of 5 finals and lost all 5 of them. And keep in mind, this is what the data looks like after most of our key players have been on the top 5 spots on ICC ranking lists over the past decade across all formats. So objectively looking at the data, the Indian side performed except for when it mattered the most. The 2023 World Cup was the best example for this. But every fan base of an individual cricketer had the same story going on. Our man was the best one in a shit team. And you know what's messed up? This blind worship leads to a scenario where the cricketers do not have an ounce of regard for the fans. They do everything that could be in the fans' worst possible interest. Despite India being one of the poorest countries in the world, where the impact of sin industries like gambling and alcohol could cause permanent, irreparable damage to the society compared to developed economies, cricketers don't think twice before promoting these products. Why? Because regardless of performance or even morality, my fan base continues to worship me. In 2023, a 16-year-old Pratik from the state of Madhya Pradesh started using one of the fantasy betting apps like Dream 11. He would ask for gambling money from his father, who was a landless farmer who didn't make more than 8,000 rupees a month, roughly equal to $90, way less than what you require to sustain in a country like India. Santosh Kaul reported being suicidal after he blew up 40,000 rupees that his parents struggled to accumulate so that their son could get a college education. Ravi, on the other hand, had it much worse. He spent all of his salary, used up all of his savings, took on debt, and even maxed out his credit cards to lose 35 lakh rupees on such apps. This amount is 15 times the per capita income of India and could be easily used to put a down payment on a house here. And despite that, the cricketers continue promoting these apps without a sliver of morality or guilt. And many fans would even defend the cricketers for doing this. They would tell you that you live in a free society, you might as well not download the betting app. The cricketer's not forcing you to do it. But think about it. If an unrelated Dutch company going by the name Philips could get trolled and abused on the internet only because Glenn Phillips was the one who caught Virat out, do you really think that the fans would stay put when Virat tells them to gamble their lives away? I think this blind worshipping by the fans is also making the cricketers blind to the fact that they actually have the power to make an impact and change narratives. And if we are to look at some more data on how bad this has become, in 2022 these apps spent nearly $600 million paying cricketers to do these promotions. And did it work? You tell me. In 2023 there were more people in India using fantasy apps than there were people with demat accounts investing in the stock market. Just imagine 20 years into the future how bad it would be for the savings and investment scenario of the country. And if you think it's just the players exploiting the situation, then you have a whole other thing coming. It's also India's cricketing board, the BCCI. Look at this piece of data. In 2023, there were 40% less teams competing for the World Cup than there were in 2007. Why is that? It's pretty simple. The BCCI also exploits the fans, it bullies other nations, and has effectively created a monarchy in the Indian sporting landscape. I'll give you examples for everything, by the way. Despite being the richest cricketing board in the world, the BCCI earned 8,995 crores or just over $1 billion in FY24. The cherry on top was that they paid 0% corporate profits tax in India because they enjoy a tax exempt status because they're promoting the sport. A year ago, The Wire reported that this was the state of the Narendra Modi Stadium in Gujarat, which happens to be the biggest stadium in the world after just one instance of rainfall. And keep in mind, only the BCCI enjoys these tax-free privileges. The Indian football team, on the other hand, had a total budget of 10 crore rupees in FY24. And their auditors reported that they were trying to take the income tax department to court to hopefully try and get the same tax exempt status that the BCCI gets. Not only are the other sports not being elevated to the same status as the BCCI isn't getting taxed anytime soon either. When a commissioner from the income tax department challenged the BCCI's tax exempt status, the Mumbai High Court quashed that, citing the BCCI promotes sport in India. The principal sponsor for the Indian cricket team is a gambling app. Are we promoting sport or gambling? If the BCCI was taxed at a 25% standard corporate tax rate, then as of the recent financials, the government would make 2,250 crores, that is 225 times the entire football team's annual budget. Money that could actually actually be used for promoting sport. So there's all of this money coming in, it's tax-free, other sports aren't being developed, there's brazen gambling going on, and the fans are being made to sit in terrible stadiums. And all of this is forgiven because cricket is a religion in India. The BCCI knows this and hence it uses it to also bully other nations. Back in 2001, during India's tour of South Africa, Sachin Tendulkar was accused of ball tampering by the match referee Mike Dennis. The entire world was split into two. Some people said it was actual ball tampering, while others said that Mike Dennis was being racist. The ICC and the South African Cricketing Board seemed to side with Mike Dennis and thought that Sachin Tendulkar was actually engaging in ball tampering. But guess what the BCCI did? Not only did the BCCI want Mike Dennis replaced as the match referee, they wanted him barred from the stadium. The South African board didn't agree to this. Guess what the BCCI did? They told the South African board that we have promised you 8 million rand in broadcasting rights. You would not get that payment if you don't do as we say. The board had no choice but to acquiesce. And think about it, why wouldn't the South African board bow to the BCCI? After all, India accounts for 90% of all cricket viewership in the world. This tendency of putting players on a pedestal and worshipping them has not only cost Indian cricket but sport and the entire world dearly. Crores of Indians could be building something meaningful, but instead, what are they doing? They're either hurling abuses at Phillips, Travis Head's wife, Harish Sangwan, or simply gambling their lives away on these apps. And you know, all of this can be sorted if we just start looking at cricket as nothing more than a sport. I am just as passionate as the average Indian cricket fan, but that's what it is for me. As soon as the last ball is bowled, it is game over. I too have my intense nail-biting moments in front of the TV, but as soon as the match is over, I go back to what I'm supposed to be doing. I am a human being with ambitions, goals and plans for the future, and I want to build my life. The sport isn't and frankly shouldn't be my life or anyone else's for that matter. It's time we woke up. What do you think about this? I'd love to know your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this off angle, consider leaving a like and subscribe for more.